proposed the idea of a moratorium on ridgeline wind power development, and we spoke about it last night. And he acknowledged that using that term may not have been the wisest move.
Unfortunately, we had this word moratorium that caused people to become polarized. What it was calling for was a system to be put in place where we actually observed our entire energy picture, looking towards the future to use renewables and figuring out which kinds of renewables were actually giving us the best bang for a buck, if you would. And to call it a moratorium, looking back, I wish we had never gone that way, because we literally had polarized those people who probably could have come out early in support of the idea.
J.D., Senator Benning says that putting these projects under Act 250 review is basically the same thing. He's accomplished everything he wanted with that idea of a moratorium. Are you buying that?
Well, first of all, the Public Service Board uses the criteria of Act 250 when they review these projects. It's pretty much lifted from that statute. But there's one big difference, and that is that the board can say a project gets approved and can approve a project because it's overall good for the state, the public good test. And that can trump local concerns. It can trump the concerns expressed in a town plan or a regional plan. And what this legislation now does is say that part of Act 250 that says deference and that project should conform with local and regional plans, that's now part of the regulatory review. So that public good trump no longer would happen. And so, maybe Senator Benning's right that it would still have that effect of stopping projects that face local opposition. This is I've never seen, usually there's an issue a year where there's substantial involvement and lobbying from the utilities, and just it's a full court press from the lobbyists in the building, and this is one of those bills, and the stakes are huge because the renewable industry, which is growing in Vermont, sees this as a real threat because it's not only wind, it's solar, it exempts transmission lines, which they see as a double standard, and they don't want to see their growth halted in any way, shape, or form. On the other hand, there are people who do have local concerns, and they're out in force, more or less from the grassroots.
One of those people that has been objecting to it is the founder of Grow Solar, Jeff Wolf, who wrote a letter to the president of the Senate, John Campbell, John Campbell said he found the letter to be intimidating and bullying. What was going on there?
Jeffrey Wolf, Windham County resident, owner, CEO of Grow Solar, sent a letter to John Campbell saying that if you don't change your position on this bill, then I will recruit a candidate to run against you, and we'll fund his or her candidacy. Essentially, he said, I'm going to take you out. Get behind this thing or I'm going to take you out. And John Campbell, not surprisingly, probably didn't respond favorably to that approach.
Threat, bullying, democracy in action, constituent writing to his legislator. How would you describe it?
All of the above. But when you say so starkly that I put money behind you before, and I'm gonna withhold those funds in the future, and then in fact spend those funds on somebody else to defeat you, I think you highlight the importance of money in this game, and I think then it becomes a bit of a threat.
And Vermont Digger was the one that published this letter. What do you make of it?
Well, I was surprised that Jeff Wolf wanted us to run the letter, frankly. We did get his permission. It had been published on Facebook, and several people had it. I think that Mr. Wolf took a lot of heat. John Margolis, our political columnist, made some hay from it, and our commenters were really outraged that he would make such a public statement that some people thought, really violated the state's ethics rules. So I think he said what he said, and John Campbell wasn't pleased, and but John was able to say that that no matter what, he was going to run, and it didn't matter, and if he lost his seat, well, then that was the way it was going to go, and so it sort of gave him an opportunity to be virtuous and in light of what happened. But I think the underlying issue here is the bill itself, and S.30 has been delayed. It was supposed to be taken up this week, and they're not going to tackle it until Tuesday, and that's for a variety of reasons. The vote's very close.
Yeah, it sounds like it's close. So bottom line, John, you think it's going to pass or not pass?
I think it's pretty much too close to call. I think if it does pass the Senate, it's probably not likely to become law because of the opposition in the House. In particular, Tony Klein, who chairs the House Natural Resources and Energy Committee, is adamantly opposed to it. I don't think Shap Smith, the Speaker, is a real fan either. And
But I mean, that's what makes it so ironic.
Right.
You know, Mr. Wolf didn't have to write this letter. This bill was never going to become law anyway. We all know that the governor would veto it, and that the House would destroy it. So it was sort of a moot point to begin with.
And
so one wonders why he went out on a limb, you know?
And he steeled John Campbell's resolve, too.
Exactly.
I mean,
Right.
if this bill was on the edge before, this could have given it the momentum it needs to actually get, there are some people that think this will end up in a 15-15 vote, and Phil Scott is going to cast another tie-breaking vote in favor of opponents to Ridgeline Wind.
Yes, no on the pipeline that might carry tar sands oil. Is that going to come under Act 250 review here?
It's a question that legislators are grappling with right now, and there seems to be a sentiment that it ought to come under Act 250 review. That stands in contrast to the opinion of the governor, who says that this is a question that's under review right now, that there's a parallel process underway at the district level to decide whether or not Act 250 will apply to this particular project, and that lawmakers are best served letting that play out as opposed to intervening from on high.
Well, everybody uses Facebook, right? So